On this week's episode, LucasFilm changes the way it makes video games. CES 2021 shows off its virtual wares. And the Marvel Cinematic Universe returns with WandaVision. All this and more as we reach our next stop, the PCC Multiverse.
Don't be alarmed. The quasi-shimmering light before you is a trans-dimensional gateway to other worlds, other voices, other thoughts, and other realities. Up feels like down, and down feels like the number 7 on a Wednesday morning. Don't worry. That quivering, blood-boiling sensation under your eyebrows is all a part of the charm. Welcome to the PCC Multiverse.
And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us at the Pop Culture Cosmos or the great radio stations around the world that play us each and every day of the week, it is truly appreciated. But it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without my good friend. You got to check out what he's doing today on the Twitter or Instagram at Castle FPV, and that is Castle with a K. It is my good friend indeed. It is Marcus de la Garza. And Marcus, great to have you back on, my friend. Ready to talk some pop culture?
Man, I don't know what just happened there. My internet hiccuped, and I missed your lead-in question there. But, hey, I do have to tell you, I'm just really excited to be back here again, Gerald. It's been a great week here for pop culture, I would say. We've seen some great things, and I'm really excited to talk about them. So let's dive right into it if you're ready.
Then I will just go back in time because we're going to be dealing with a little bit of time issues here when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So we'll just go back in time. Marcus, you ready to talk some pop culture this week on today's program?
I am. It's been a great week, man. I'm really excited to talk some Marvel. I'm excited to talk some CES. And I'm really, really, really excited to talk some Lucasfilms. And we're going to tease something on the way out, a little 52 weeks of Netflix films. I'm excited to hear your take on this one, man.
Plus, we've got on today's show, on the back end, Cody Langley stopping by from Popular Opinion. That's the Popular Opinion channel on YouTube. You got to go ahead and check it out today, along with his great show on there. Not only does he do a lot of features with Funko, but he also has a great show, Wheel of Misfortune. So check that out there. It is the Popular Opinion channel on YouTube. And he's going to stop by a little bit later in the program to talk some Funko Pops. We're going to go deep into Funko Pop collecting later on in the program. Plus, also as well, we are going to bring up Netflix, 52 weeks of Netflix films coming up throughout the year. Is this something that can be reached? We're going to talk about that on the back end of the show. Plus, also, Lucasfilm has redone everything in regards to the way it will handle video games going forward. So we're going to discuss that on the back end of the show as well. Plus, also, we're going to be discussing CES 2021 and my time there, and also Marcus's observations on what was hot. I'm bringing back the hot, just because Marcus just has a great laugh over it. What was hot at CES 2021 this year as well. But first, my friend, we do have to go ahead and start off with this. It is the return of the Marvel Cinematic Universe with WandaVision, which debuts this weekend. Actually, as you hear this on Friday, it has already debuted on Disney Plus with 2 episodes. Mind you, it's not going to be a 2-hour movie or a 4-hour miniseries or anything like that. It's going to be 2 pretty much half-hour episodes patterned after the sitcoms that they're going to go ahead and pattern themselves after decade by decade. And I think it's going to start off with the 50s, if I'm not mistaken, with, like, for instance, the Dick Van Dyke Show and I Love Lucy, and start off and go through the decades on that and the world that Wanda Maximoff, a.k.a. Scarlet Witch, delves into in her own mind and all the things that she creates out of it. So I want to hear your thoughts first off, the excitement level that you have about now seeing the Marvel Cinematic Universe, after over a year, finally come back into action and play itself out once again.
This feels like the perfect correction for what was 2020, right? Like, we just didn't have any MCU, and 2021 starting off with a bang, and it's starting off with the debut of WandaVision. You know, it's one of those things. I was reading an interview this week. Paul Bettany was saying that he thought he was getting fired when he got called in to be pitched this show.
Yes.
He was ready. He told his wife, well, I guess that's it. I'm getting canned. Walked in. He said, well, guys, I just want to let you know, thank you very much. It's been a great few years here. And they said, oh, are you quitting? And he goes, no, I thought you were firing me. Nope. We just want to pitch you a show. I mean, this is wild. How do you have that kind of turn of events there? So I'm really excited to see this one. I mean, I've waxed poetic about I Love Lucy and the Beverly Hillbillies and all sorts of other shows that, you know, I watched growing up on Nick at Night or VHS. We had quite a VHS collection of some of those old TV shows. So I'm very excited to see how this is going to kind of play on that old school pop culture and bring that new life to it.
Okay, the presentation is going to be top notch, but I'm just wondering, how is the underlying atmosphere? Because not only does this need to feed in as far as the beginnings for the multiverse itself, for not only what we're going to be seeing in Doctor Strange 2, the Multiverse of Madness, but the MCU, and also, I don't know if you've heard, it's also going to tie in somewhat to Spider-Man 3 as well.
I did not hear that last twist there. Is that something that just came out with CES, or is that something that they snuck in there?
It's just been snuck in there. The reason why is because if it's going to go ahead and shape this multiverse concept, she's going to be dabbling with the multiverse in order to create this world, this universe that at least in the show, it's a series that's being portrayed at, that she's going to be living in. And in order to do so, she's going to be tapping into things that only you really saw in brief moments in Avengers Endgame, and also as well in the Ant-Man and the Wasp movies. You only saw brief glimpses of that. And she's going to be delving into things that probably kick off some other things in other parts of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And one of the things that was mentioned, almost like out of hand, but it was mentioned that it will also likely tie into Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man has an association with Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange is now the new mentor for Spider-Man. So this is all going to tie in. And I know that Elizabeth Olsen is actually filming Doctor Strange 2 now with Benedict Cumberbatch. So all this is going to be tying in. It is very interesting. I'm just worried about the underlying factor, not how it's going to be presented to us, because obviously it's going to be top notch.
Right.
But how is it going to tie into the rest of the MCU?
There's a lot of loose threads that you've got to tie together here, but you got to tie up all these loose ends at the very beginning of the MCU, like you were just saying, and find a way to give us that complete storyline here. So yeah, I'm with you, Gerald. This is an interesting predicament to be in.
I also want to go ahead and mention that this again kicks off the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which has now been lost seemingly for over a year now since the events of Spider-Man Far From Home. And that's something that we're now have to get back into. And that's something, are you afraid you may not be able to get back into it? Are you excited? No. And it's so weird because it's been over a year now since you've had to go ahead and get yourself in a mindset. And it quickly went from a period of time where a lot of people were just had enough of superhero films and had enough of Marvel, and they were becoming overloaded with it, to now a situation without it for a year. So they're like thinking, that's what I need back in my life. So are you going to be able to get back into it as intently as you once did?
I mean, for me, definitely. And it just comes down to the fact that, as I said when I let off with my feelings on this one, it's like we're restoring the balance to the universe here. We've got an MCU title coming out here, even if it is just a TV show, a half-hour TV show. I'm really excited to have this back in our lives, and I don't foresee any problems with pop culture jumping back into this one. I feel like they could have done a little bit of a better job promoting it. I feel like I could have been seeing more ads on the internet, but this is something that I think people will catch wind of it, and it's just going to take off.
Well, Disney Plus is riding high off of what they did with Soul. They got a lot of great response. It's been something that was kind of surprising for a lot of people, that the kind of response they got back for it, because it actually was outperforming as far as audience response what we were seeing from either Wonder Woman 1984 or anything from Netflix during that period of time. So Disney Plus is doing very well going into WandaVision. And you're right. I think they could have done a better job of promoting it, maybe a little bit more of the return of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, blah, 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 blah. Some of the great things that they could have done in there. But we'll see what happens after the show debuts. And maybe they'll really get into it like we saw with The Mandalorian. Because once The Mandalorian came out and they saw what kind of interest there was into it, Disney promoted the heck out of it. And we could see that once again with WandaVision, where people are just really so excited to get back into it that not only will it be a great word of mouth, but Disney will realize that and catch fire on that. And we'll look to see if we can go ahead and perpetuate that excitement that is going to, I think, happen with WandaVision. I don't know how much I can be excited for, because remember, it's 2 short episodes, 2 30-minute episodes, but still, it is something I'm definitely interested and intrigued to get into right now.
I'm interested to hear what the listeners have to say about this one, because it's going to be one of those ones that, you know, even as I even just made my point about, I wish they would have advertised more. The more I think about it, the zealots of the MCU fan base are going to be out there promoting within their own circles. This is a widely known release. It's going to end up being hot, you know? It's hot.
But one last thing I wanted to ask you on this when it concerns the MCU was something that came up on Thursday as we record this. And it was something that was mentioned in Deadline and then repeated by Variety. And that was a possible return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe in some form or fashion by one Chris Evans as Captain America. Your thoughts on this? Because he's currently negotiating, if you believe the headlines that are on Deadline and Variety, and both of those have been able to get inside scoops on many times before. So I have a tendency to believe that this is not hearsay, that Chris Evans has a genuine interest in getting back into the MCU.
Yeah, I think if I hadn't worked for all of 2020, I'd be looking for a steady job for 2021 and trying to get back in on the MCU. It's exciting. I would love to know how the storylines come back together and we can weave him back into the storylines moving forward.
I don't think it'll be in a big way. If people are looking for Captain America, the Winter Soldier Part 2, you're not going to get it, but you could see him either as in flashbacks, you could see him as small guest appearances on shows, or you could see him as Old Man Cap, and I'm not sure everybody would like that.
Yeah, Old Man Cap didn't go over so well. I think we should maybe stay away from that one, but, you know, I'm okay with some flashbacks here and there. You know, if it gives him a little bit of an acting part, you know, in a couple episodes for WandaVision, anything else moving forward, you know, I'm okay with that, but I'm hesitant if we're going to go back and do a full-on movie with him. It feels like we're just backing up the Brinks truck because we can.
But I am intrigued to see what they would do with Chris Evans in this forwarding of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, obviously, we've talked about before that they have a design on the Young Avengers, eventually evolving that as far as growing them. In fact, we're going to be seeing that during the course of WandaVision, the twins that they have, Wiccan and Speed, that we're going to be seeing during the course of the events here in WandaVision, plus all the other Young Avengers that are going to be in all the other shows that are upcoming. So this is something that we're going to be seeing in the not too distant future, plus with a new Fantastic Four on the way, or the X-Men actually probably won't see anything on the X-Men really until 2023, 2024. Could he be interacting with Deadpool when Deadpool 3 comes out? You never know. That could be something that would just be hilarious if that was the case. But I'm truly looking forward to seeing Chris Evans as Captain America back in the MCU in some form or fashion, although I'm not expecting big things, and I don't think you should either out there. Yeah. But just having him a part once again would be really cool. But overall, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we can start talking about it again because it's now back with WandaVision on Disney+. What are your thoughts out there on the return of the Marvel Cinematic Universe with WandaVision, with the first 2 episodes dropping this weekend on Disney+? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com.
Hey, this is Chad from Ghost Toasters, and you're listening to Pop Culture Cosmos Podcast.
For the latest news and information, analysis and opinions on the Los Angeles Lakers and the NBA, check out the Lakers Fast Break podcast today on wherever you get your podcasts. All right, my friend, I did get a chance to travel all the way through my computer to CES this year, CES 2021. Wasn't quite the experience I was looking forward to, and I understand that it was virtual, but I've been through quite a few virtual conventions already, and I noticed a lot of those were more interactive, more interpersonal activity than what I saw at CES 2021. Sure, there were well over 1,500 vendors that you could choose from, that you could go into the portal. You could go ahead and check out their wares. You could download the PDFs. And then if it's during the right hours of the day, you could interact with someone. They had always somebody stationed that, hey, this person's on, that you can talk to them right now. I mean, it just seemed to me kind of lacked warmth, but the electronics were there. Also, as well, I wanted to go ahead and say that the announcements were subdued and limited. Some of the vendors that I spoke to and reached out to said they didn't announce anything new this year, or they weren't bringing anything new to the table. They just had their old stuff there, or the stuff that they had that were best sellers and regular sellers over the course of time, simply because of the fact that they didn't want to go ahead with what's going on with the coronavirus and announce something new in the pipeline this year, or have for some prototypes. But that didn't stop everyone from going ahead and announcing some things. And yes, like I said, it was a little subdued this year at CES 2021, but there was still some great things that were out there that I think took interest to both you and I. Some of it's topical, some of it's for the future, some of it's actually for the current and now, and very important. So I want to hear your thoughts on what you found interest in this year at CES 2021.
There is a lot that went on this year. Razer, I think, was the one that really caught both of our eyes, and maybe we should save that one for the end. But yeah, Sony came out with a brand new panel. It's the A90J. It's a OLED 4K TV. To me, I'm a huge Sony fan, you know, whether it's the PS5 or their receivers. And I know that some people will argue with me and say that you can find a better quality audio video receiver on the marketplace, right? But I'm just a Sony fanboy at the end of the day. So their new panels coming out this year, the new 4K OLED TV is looking beautiful. It's built on Google Home's software instead of the typical Android SDK that they've been running in the past. Man, I'm really excited about what Sony had to offer there. And then one of the other big stars that we have talked about previously in this program, Arcade1Up. I didn't really delve too far into their announcements, but I mean, maybe you can take a second to share it with us, Gerald.
Absolutely. Arcade1Up didn't have anything earth-shattering this year. It didn't have a lot of new cabs that are on the way. Focused more on the cabs, the cabinets, the arcade cabinets, than any of the pinball machines like they did last year. And then later in the year with the Infinity Gaming Table, which I'm really interested in. That is cool. And you and I have spoken about that before.
We just talked about that about a month and a half ago, didn't we?
Yeah. And I mean, they did mention it, but it's obviously something that they're still working on. They got numerous support on Kickstarter for it. So there's a great interest on that. So once it finally does come out to retail, a lot of people are going to be just like all over the Infinity Gaming Table, as it looks really cool. And I'm really excited for it myself. But Arcade1Up did announce some new cabs. Some of them were fan choices. I mean, I've been through the fan boards on Facebook now for a couple years, and some of these are units that people were asking for. They were really responding to it, and a lot of people were very happy with it. There were some units that they still have not gotten that some people would like to see. I know, first off, Dragon's Lair, having a Dragon's Lair 2, and Space Ace cabinet really looks good. I think is something that was really a nice and pleasant surprise. I know our friends at iArcade, they had brought out their own Dragon's Lair cabinet as well, which obviously is going to be competition for them. And seeing how that's the case, it was just a matter of time before Arcade1Up says, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and bring out a mass merchandise one for retail as well. So I know Dragon's Lair has been talked about for quite a bit. X-Men, the full
4-player.
The 4-player, but remember, it was a 6-player at the arcades. That's the only thing. But I know since this is a smaller unit, I don't think you could realistically get 6 players and have them all be able to see the action going on a 60 to 75% version of what the actual real arcade cabinet is. it is a 4-player version of the X-Men game, which I think is going to be pretty successful because they've already had 4-player cabinets such as NBA Jam and others that have already come out that are people have really gotten into. So I see success for that if they go ahead and send it out to the retail stores and like. They did announce a Killer Instinct cabinet, and that's going to come with Battletoads and also Killer Instinct 2. I'm not a huge Killer Instinct fan. I played it a little bit, wasn't too big on it. Thought it was almost like a PG version of Mortal Kombat and a wannabe version of Street Fighter. I wasn't big on Killer Instinct, but I know it has its fan base. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on Killer Instinct. I mean, it's a nice looking cab, though. I won't dissuade that.
Yeah, so I just pulled up the images of the Killer Instinct cab, man. It looks great. I'm with you, though. That game was just a PG ripoff of Mortal Kombat at the end of the day, man. I'm interested to see how well that one sells, and it's one of those things. They do have a cult following. People love Arcade 1-Up, love their cabinets, man. So I'd love to see what their sales figures look like mid-year and even next year this time. I was pretty enthused by the Pong cabinet. I was just looking at the pictures of it, reading the specs on it.
And that's something I want to mention real quick, and I'll let you go into it, is a Pong table. It's a 4-player, but it's actually looks like a coffee table that's with an extended base that does have a Pong, and it has several other games in there as well. So that is something I'm really interested in. I like the fact that it had not only for doubles, for quadrupong, Pong Sports, Warlords from the old Atari 2600, Circus Atari from the old 2600, Tempest and Super Breakout. That looks like it's going to be a fun cabinet. I don't know how well it's going to sell, but it does look like to me it's going to be a fun cabinet. What were your thoughts on it? Because Pong is the thing that I actually got introduced into video games first and foremost.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a standing cabinet, so it's almost like a elevated bar table you'd see while you're out having a beer with your buddies. But I'm interested in it, man. It's a nice conversation piece. It'd be interesting to have in your home. I could see if you have a game room, it'd be a great accessory for the game room. It's a place where you can go sit down and talk to your buddies, maybe have an adult beverage and play some Pong. Really get back to it. And Quadrupong is really what I was interested in there. That has to be intense. I can't imagine trying to track all that at once.
4 players playing at the same time with Pong, that would be a lot of fun to play. And I know that's something that I think a lot of people will be interested in initially when it comes to Pong. I know I forget the company's name. I saw there last year, and I actually got a email from them this year in regards to the large, humongous Pong table that was like with the magnetic Pong. It's not a video Pong, it's a magnetic Pong, but it looks really good. I don't know if people remember that, but yeah, it is something that cost several $1,000s. And then I know they've made a smaller version of it this year. Yeah. And that's something that I saw physically at CES last year, and something that they're now introduced a smaller version of this year. And I think that's really cool, and it shows the uniqueness of Pong. But if people want to go ahead and get their Pong fixed, this is going to be a more affordable version of that. And I think a lot of people are going to turn to this. So it's going to hurt that business for that higher end marketplace for someone who wants that kind of niche outlook with that kind of table. But definitely Arcade 1-Up, I think, has hit a nice stroke with the nostalgic Pong table and all the extra games that come with it. Still would like to see some other things added in there as far as for Arcade 1-Up, but I know there's a lot of licensing and a lot of things that they have to go through. Plus, you've also got Legends Arcade and iArcade that both of them are now coming into the marketplace and want to go ahead and make their imprint. But with Arcade 1-Up, is there any one cabinet that you want the most? I know people are talking about Star Wars, the arcade trilogy. They've been talking about Tron for years. They've been talking about WWE Superstars and WrestleFest on one cabinet. That one I know is going to be hard because I've spoken to them off camera, individuals that work there, and they know what I know in regards to that, the licensing on that, because of the fact that that property could be owned by different individual companies that no longer exist. And I'm not talking about the WWE end of it, That's the part that might be hard to get. So we may never see that come to fruition. But is there any one arcade one-up cabinet you would love to see reproduced?
I really haven't heard the talk about the Tron cabinets, and that really caught my attention really quickly there. I'm flipping through
I remember playing that. I always played it at pizza parlors. I never played the arcades, but I always played it at pizza parlors for some reason.
Really?
Yes. I don't know why. It was there at arcades, but always it was at pizza parlors, and I always found it intriguing to play there. Or Zaxxon, which had a similar flight stick type deal.
Okay. I've always been a pinball
He wasn't impressed.
Sorry. I've always been a pinball fan, and I really wish that they would delve a little bit deeper. They've got a Marvel pinball cabinet
and Star Wars.
And Star Wars, yeah. It's one of those things that, what was it? The F-14 Tomcat pinball cabinet. Great cabinet. Loved it growing up. That's one I'd love to see reproduced. But, I know that's a kind of a niche market there. So,
but there's so many out there with either virtual pinball that can have a whole bunch of different skins, actually your choice put on there. Yeah. Ace Computers came out with some. There's several different companies that I met last year that are bringing virtual pinball or have virtual pinball out on the marketplace that you may be able to create that just for that. Even if you don't have it on the surface, you can create mods in there that can get you what you need.
So, just thinking about that, kind of circling back around, I'm on board with that Tron game, man. It's, I loved the original movie. I loved the movie we did a few years ago with... And, I do remember the Tron cabinets were mostly gone by the time I started delving into the arcades, but I do remember a few of them in person, and I would love to see it in a virtual sense.
You talked about Razer, and we would leave that for the end. So I want to quickly run through the two major things that I saw. First off, they are developing, and it's a prototype of a smart face mask that they're talking about, where it gives you the reading off your cell phone of your vitals and things of that nature. They're not the first ones to do it as far as smart masks that are coming out or that are on the way or that are in some type of development. I know that that's something that a lot of people are interested in, obviously, because of what's going on with the coronavirus. But the one I think you and I wanted to talk about the most was a concept project that was something I think I would love to have in my room, but that's not going to happen.
Project Brooklyn, when you look at it and you get a view on that rendering, it's wild. It's got the rollable screen that sits in front of you. It's a 180 degrees field of view, correct?
Yes, it's a 60-inch rounded screen that wraps around you. You're sitting in a chair. Everything is RGB lit with also a desk panel right below you where you put your keyboard and your mouse. But again, the screen is just wrapped around you. Dude, it's just like we're in the future, man. It's like in the future.
It is. And, my only holdup about it is, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Grandma's Boy, but they've got a character in there. His name's JB, that he's a little bit on the nerdy side, and he's got this sweet chair set up that is comparable to Project Brooklyn, and they make a lot of fun of him in the movies. I'm a little hesitant. I don't want to be the source of the laughter of all my friends, but I'm very excited by it. It looks like an awesome setup, and we'd be lucky if we could ever get one. I know this is a futuristic concept for them. It's a couple years off now still, but it's an impressive goal, I think.
Well, I'll tell you what, if Razer wants to send a prototype or a review unit my way, bring it on down, because I would love to see if the Project Brooklyn would be something that is viable, something that's mass marketable now. If not, it could be something that 10 years down the line could be something that we will truly love as gamers, because a 60-inch OLED display right in front of you while you're relaxing in one of the Razer chairs would be just an awesome experience indeed. But that was our time with CES 2021. Not exactly the most personable and most newsworthy conference. Not too much really of note, really, that makes you go ooh and ah outside of what we talked about. But again, we're looking forward to hopefully returning to CES in a physical fashion, hopefully in 2022 with CES 2022. I know they're trying to go ahead and do that, but we'll see what the world is like coming up then, and we'll see if CES 2022, we can go ahead and be part of the action once again. What are your thoughts out there on CES 2021? Did you see anything exciting? Did you see anything interesting? when it comes to what was announced at CES 2021? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, coming up next, it is Cody Langley of the Popular Opinion channel on YouTube. He's coming up next to talk about some Funko Pops and what makes Funko Pops such a collectible piece of memorabilia that everybody seems to want and everybody, I think, probably has. They're so hot. They're so hot. But it is Cody Langley coming up right after the break. This is the PCC Multiverse.
Video game box art, the stories behind the covers, in which we talk to the illustrators and artists who are responsible for gaming's most iconic images. Don't forget to check out Video Game Box Art, the stories behind the covers, celebrating gaming's most iconic images from the people who created them. This and many more from Rob McCallum Films.
All right, and we're back with the program. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. 2021 brings a lot of good things out there, including possibly, hopefully, and knowing the company themselves, most likely a whole bunch of Funko Pops on the way. And who better to talk about Funko Pops than one of the preeminent experts on Funko Pops? And if you want to find out more about Funko Pops, the best place to go is actually the Popular Opinion. That's P-O-P in all caps, Popular Opinion channel that's now available on YouTube. Plus, he has also a great show, which was voted the most popular show from Indie Pods United and what's actually the People's Choice for 2020. It is Cody Langley. And Cody, appreciate you stopping by, talking some Funko Pops, pop culture, and we just appreciate you stopping by on the program today.
Oh, Jared, I'm glad to be here. A lot of popular stuff going on for sure in the world of Pops, and no pun intended, but it's going to be a good show. I definitely got I even brought something I got in the mail today I can show off to you. So a lot of good stuff, man, to get to.
Well, that'd be great. That'd be great indeed. In fact, with your channel and my channel and all the stuff that we do, so focused on pop, of course, but pop culture, where it emanates from, and so many things that are out there in pop culture. Again, something that you are one of the leading experts on is the Funko Pop craze that has come out within the past 5 years. And I was looking up some of the financial reports, and people think, oh, they're just dolls. They're just collectibles. Who cares about them?
They're the next Beanie Babies.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing is, as I was looking up and as they posted for fiscal year 2019, they generated almost $800 million of these. So people need to stop thinking of them in just toys, just simple collectibles. It's a major industry that they helped launch in and of itself, a whole genre, a whole type of new industry in collectibles that was never seen possible, relating to not only the past, but current trends in pop culture. And I want to know, first off, your fascination, because I know you're not alone. In fact, when I go to the stores, one of our sponsors, Retro City Games, I stop by there. There's tons and tons of pops that are available. People buy them in droves. I know my good friend, Mike Faber of the ESO Network, he has a ton sitting on his shelves, and so many other people out there. The fascination is there with Funko Pops. I want to know where it began with you.
Well, it didn't start on purpose. That is the funny part is, I wasn't out there looking to buy them. And it's funny, I think I would remember seeing them. But, in the past, I worked for GameStop for a very, very long time. But 2011, I started there. And then I think 2014, I worked at a very small GameStop store in a very small location. But, we started getting the Funko Pops in like 2014. I think it was around Black Friday. And they had these things, and there was like a chance to get, my favorite character is Batman. And you had a chance to get like a gold Batman in these little boxes. I was like, oh, that looks so cool. So I remember getting a couple boxes. Spoiler alert, I didn't get gold Batman. But I got some cool stuff. And then I would just start seeing them everywhere, right? Like all over the place. And I would just start getting them and more and more and more. And then I started getting into mystery boxes, which is a whole nother road. But it probably started about 2014. And, I was pretty hooked there at the beginning. I've calmed down a little bit these days. I still buy stuff I like, but I was really buying like almost everything that was coming out. But I did want to show you, I was going to show you real quick one. I got this cool one today that came in the mail because I had to get this one, man. It's cool, man. Got to get the King of Rock, man, Elvis Presley, a diamond Elvis Presley. So that's cool. I thought that was a really cool one, man. And they just make so much stuff, like whatever you can think of. And I don't know any other company that has as many licenses on stuff that they do. They got over 400 licenses.
Well, I think it came out to the point where, okay, at first I know they had some hurdles they had to go through. And actually spoken to them before at different events live. And this is just off the air type stuff with general reps and whatnot. Initially, it was hard for them to get some of these licenses. But once these licenses and the people behind them started seeing the money, started seeing where they were being displayed at, saw them at Walmart, at then Toys R Us, at GameStops, at Kmart's, Targets, Best Buys, all over the place. When these would transfer all over from an electronics store to a department store to a clothing store to any type of the stores that you would see these, people started to understand, hey, these are selling big and we got to go ahead and say yes to our licenses. So I'm going to say around 2016, 2017, you really started to see a boom in Funko Pops because of the fact that they were now widely accepted as a major collectible that anybody could afford.
Right. And one of the big retailers, surprisingly, first that had these a lot, they jumped on the train early, was Hot Topic, actually.
Yep.
And they had a ton. That's why you still see Hot Topic gets a ton of exclusives, but they were on the train early and they were just making a killing off these pops. And it's, a lot of it is nostalgia. The movie industry tries to kick back into nostalgia stuff. Pops are the same way. You have that emotional connection with the product because you see it and it reminds you of something that you liked. And that just really hooks you in. And they're like $10, right? So the cost of entry is easy and a lot less expensive than, say, like Legos. Yeah, they're $10. Everybody can afford it. And I honestly think the rise of them came as well with the rise of Comic Cons and getting stuff autographed because they make them of your characters from your favorite shows, movies. If you like an anime show, odds are there's a voice actor that you can get signed from your favorite character. So with Comic Con starting to rise up, people taking to get stuff autographed, I think this helped Funko Pops tremendously as well. And I have my friends that'll come over, and I've got over 1,600 right now, which is insane. But like my friends will come over and they'll see something, and they'll say, "Man, that's cool that they made that. I didn't even know they had a pop of that or something."
Legos, however, try to find anything outside of a small box that's under $40 these days. Good luck. The Death Star, the Millennium Falcon, everything that people actually want in Lego sets are truly expensive. So I could see Pops, like you said, in and around $10 that people really want to go ahead and collect in. And this is a lot of fun. And they are a major source for your channel, Popular Opinion. And with the success of Pops, I mean, it's great for them, but not necessarily for your pocketbook.
Yeah, and a lot of people, and this is the argument or the pushback that I'll get is that, a lot of people try to compare it to something like Beanie Babies, right? They'll say it's just a fad. They're not going to stay around. They're going to crash. None of them's going to be worth anything. But like I tell people too, I'm like, well, Beanie Babies weren't really made off of a license of a certain person. Besides, they had a Princess Diana one, like I do remember that. But they're not based off anything. So to me, it's not the same. And all you got to do is look at the stock reports and show you that Funko's crushing it with the pop line. And now the soda line is blowing up. And I think the soda line is going to be huge for years to come. And, the Funko train, it's not stopping anytime soon. A good way to tell is just look at the company's stock report. And that'll tell you pretty much all you need to know. And even with the COVID pandemic going around, where they weren't even shipping as much product to stores as previous years, they still made a ton of money on Pops. A lot of it was they didn't even have the conventions this year, like San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con. They didn't even go to those shows. They did everything online, and they still killed it. So they're cool, they're fun, and it's a low price point of entry. There's something for everybody, which I appreciate.
Of course, for anybody out there, they can go to Target and Walmart and go and get the general ones that are out there in general release, and because it's something that they can relate to, and that's at a good price point. I definitely agree with you on that. A great deal of Pops have now become extremely valuable and extremely hard and difficult to get because, like you said, Cody, that's how they popularized Pops, was going to Comic-Cons and making certain ones available only for a certain time. And that's how they got an interest in it as far as from collectors that have now got thousands, I'm sure, that's upon their collection because they had to go and collect. But it can be overwhelming to anyone that really wants to get serious about Funko Pops.
It can be difficult, extremely difficult, but it's like that with anything. I see, saying it could be difficult to score certain ones. There needs to be a better online way of maybe ordering these. I think Funko's working on that. But it's like with anything, like if you're a shoe head and you're a shoe collector, there's sites out there that have bots, unfortunately, that can check out faster than us and maybe can beat you on checking out and getting stuff you want. That's like in anything. Pokemon, I mean, that's anything out there. And, just collect what you love at the end of the day. I will say, though, definitely, Funko on certain lines, they do make too many of certain ones. Like, do we really need like 10 of a new Spider-Man every couple months or something? They do, but it's like, I pick and choose certain ones that I like.
Well, it becomes overwhelming in the world of Funko Pops as something that achieves any type of success. Everybody wants to have a piece of it. And the licenses, once they saw how just huge Pops were, that just, we're going to go ahead and see what we can do to bleed it dry. In fact, right now, anything relating to the Mandalorian and a certain Baby Yoda, Grogu, the child, whatever you want to relate it as, right now, if you can put it on anything, they're pretty much going to go ahead and try and do so because it is just so popular right now. And that's what we are as, I guess, a society. Once we see something we like, we want to go ahead and see how we can generate money from it any way we can. But what are some of the things that you're looking forward to in Funko Pops for 2021?
I want to see where they're going to go. They recently, at the end of the year, they came out with the Black Light Marvel and DC Pops, which were really cool, really unique looking Pops, man. I'm not just a fan of the Pop itself, but like the box art. That's one thing I think Funko maybe misses the ball on some of them. Like, man, let's make the box art look cool too. The Black Light Pops, man, that box art really stood out. And they just announced this. So, if you guys have Disney Plus and you're an old comic book fan, they are going to do What If series Pops next year. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do with the What If series. I remember having, and this is old school. I don't collect comics as much today. But growing up, like, I think there was what if Wolverine was like the leader of a vampire cult or something? Like, it's some crazy stuff they could do. And they just did the Marvel Zombies line, which is a cool new comic series. I hope they're going to do Deceased, which is the zombie version of the DC superheroes. I hope that comes out next year.
For someone that wants to jump into Pops, they're getting into the ball game a little bit late. We know that. Everybody knows that. But what can they do to make it enjoyable and also somewhat affordable for them as well?
Yeah. If you're getting into it, take out the monetary reasons. Don't collect them based on what you think or maybe what you want the value of them to be. If you see one, you're like, man, that looks cool, pick it up. If you're worried about it, man, is this going to be worth $500 in 2 years? You're probably in it for the wrong reasons. So buy what you like, because if not, you're going to be like me, who was definitely a prime example. I was buying way too much stuff, and it was overwhelming. But now I've eased off and said, you know what? Let me get the ones I like and just go that route, because it's easy to get overwhelmed. Now, there's also people on Facebook Marketplace or something. I find deals all the time. People sell collections like really cheap if you're really just trying to get stuff for a good deal. So that's what I would kind of tell you to do. Don't worry about the monetary value. Just get what you like, because stuff that comes out today, a lot of it's not going to be worth what came out when the first couple of years when Funko started pumping stuff out, because they made less of stuff. Now they make a lot more of certain things.
Cody, it's just been tremendous having you here. I want you to come back on the show again to give us an update on Funko Pops at some point in time of the year when you deem fit, when you can stop by, or if you think anything is out there in the Funko world that you want us to go ahead and know about. Just definitely want to hear from you, and I hope you will return to us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos.
If you need your video game fix, be sure to check out Retro City Games. Located in Town Square on Las Vegas Boulevard or in Henderson, Nevada, Retro City Games has the cure for all your video game vices. Retro games and games for current consoles, Nintendo, Sega, PlayStation, Xbox, and more. Retro City Games has all the staples from any library and some highly collectible offerings too. So pick up a few games today at Retro City Games in Town Square on Las Vegas Boulevard or in Henderson, Nevada. Retro City Games is your video game metropolis.
And we're back to close out the show. This is the PC Multiverse. Want to thank Cody Langley from the Popular Opinion channel on YouTube. That's POP, all in caps. That's Popular Opinion on YouTube. But my friend, before we head on out, there's so much to talk about when it comes to Lucasfilm Games. They announced that, hey, we want to be known as Lucasfilm Games first and foremost. So all the Star Wars games are going to be absorbed into this Lucasfilm Games banner.
Yep.
Didn't say they were kicking EA to the curb. EA did announce that there will be more Star Wars games in the future. But they're leaving the door open more often with Lucasfilm Games for other developers and publishers to come on in there to work with Lucasfilm Games. And first and foremost were two big mentions for Bethesda and Ubisoft.
Yep.
First thing with Bethesda, and this really got my interest, was an Indiana Jones video game that's going to be produced by Todd Howard, who you know from the Elder Scrolls and also Fallout. So that's going to be something very interesting right there. And second was something that was announced on the next day for Ubisoft and Massive Games, makers of The Division and The Division 2. And they're going to be making and creating an open world game in the Star Wars universe.
Really big announcements there for Bethesda and Ubisoft. I'm really excited about this. It would be interesting to see how you could continue the Indiana Jones franchise, how you can keep developing the Star Wars franchise. Do we end up with the Mandalorian game in a few years? I'm interested in the Ubisoft creation. It's a massive game. From what I've read, they're going to be using, the massive Snowdrop engine that was behind The Division 2 and a couple other big titles. It's one of those things that, or whatever is the end result of the creation here out of Ubisoft, I'm hoping that the high standards that Lucasfilms has continues on, because we've had some great video games in the past, and I love that we're bringing this back under a central umbrella again.
It looks like it's something that's going to be a little bit more open sourced as far as the number of individual companies that will get the privilege of going ahead and working with the Star Wars canon and the Star Wars universe. You know, I know a lot of people were very weary of EA's handling over the years of how they got that exclusive contract, and only the Traveler's Tales company and some others could actually go ahead and create things within the brand of Star Wars, and how EA could always get the massive multiplayer games or the story-driven games, and they were the only ones that were allowed to work on them. But we've seen with, I think, the fallout from Battlefront 2 and also the loot boxes and the way that went down, and I think a lot of people got really irritated by that, and there was a lot of backlash to that. I know in recent times, Star Wars Squadrons and especially Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order have really done well to put the shine back on EA when it comes to Star Wars games. But I think when it comes down to it, that Lucasfilm Games wants to go ahead and broaden its horizons. And I appreciate the fact that they're going to go ahead and give other developers a chance. Now, does this set you up for some games that are going to be stinkers? More often, yeah, but I'd like to go ahead and have that opportunity to take that chance. And I'm going to be seeing Star Wars game after Star Wars game year after year. I know that might become tiresome after a little while, as we saw with the Star Wars movie universe. But with Lucasfilm and Disney overseeing the whole thing, I know they need an influx of cash with what they're not getting in certain other areas. So I don't blame them for going ahead in this route and saying, you know what, we're going to open up to everyone else. I'm telling you right now, I have more faith in the Indiana Jones game, which will probably be a narrative game, than the open world Star Wars game, especially after what we've seen with Cyberpunk 2077 and the issues and flaws. And in fact, the CEO of CD Projekt Red and the founder of CD Projekt Red, I don't know if you caught the video. I put that on GameSource on Facebook, where he made a statement in regards to it, basically apologizing for the whole way through and taking the blame for everything, and ultimately saying he was the one that gave it the okay to go beyond PS4 and Xbox One in the condition that's in, and announcing all these changes that are upcoming and fixes and updates and all that coming down the road. He basically put himself out. Now, it's weeks later after the release. I think that was
too
bad
late,
time.
man.
Yeah, it's too late. It's like the water's already left the dam. Oh, well. But I will say this, that when it comes to giving your property out to more individual companies, you're setting yourself up for more successes, but you're also setting yourself up for more possible failures as well.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of vertical integration when it comes to, trying to own an entire product line. There's some issues there because you end up being a little short-sighted if you're trying to develop something entirely internally. I'm hoping that we don't end up spreading this too thin and end up with too many paths for terrible things to happen here in the development of these games moving forward. They're setting themselves up in the best way possible. It's going to come down to, can we actually succeed and capture the attention of the gamers and capture the spirit of gaming?
Was this decision initiated by poor sales this holiday of Star Wars Squadrons and the second holiday season for Jedi Fallen Order? Right. Star Wars Squadrons got favorable responses. It looks great, but because of its reduced price and lack of content, I think maybe it would have served itself better as DLC for Battlefront 2 as opposed to being a full-fledged game that it was. I think that's probably something that I think would be the first thing I would have said there.
Would you have paid $25 or $30 for it to be DLC?
It depends on the DLC. It depends on what I'm getting. I think, you're only paying $40 for the retail game anyways. Although most people have been able to go ahead and get Star Wars Squadrons a lot cheaper than that. So I think it would have served itself better as a way to gain renewed interest in Battlefront 2. Because they've done a lot of work on Battlefront 2, and I've heard it's a lot better. Like, stop me if you've ever heard this before. They've done a lot of great work on it since the release, and it is now a much better experience than it was before. Gee, doesn't that sound like almost every failed game or game that's fallen flat on its face? Actually, I can't count them on my hands now because there's so many titles out there that's done that. But
why is it always that No Man's Sky is the first thing that comes to my brain? And I know that they've done tremendous work in developing.
But Fallout 76, there's just so many now that have come out that they put so much energy into it after the fact. You look at it and say, you know what? Oh, the Master Chief Collection.
Yes.
The Master Chief Collection is tremendous now. When I first bought it, it was a really buggy mess. So, it just tells me right now that this could have been something that was really, really good as a way to reinvigorate sales in Battlefront 2. Instead, maybe it didn't get the response financially that they wanted, even though it got great critical success on Star Wars Squadrons. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, man, it's interesting to see what's going on here. Where do you stand on really pushing the bounds here and further developing some of these LucasFilms properties? Especially with the development of the Ahsoka Tano TV show coming. We've got the Lando TV show coming as well. Do we see games come out alongside those, or are we going to?
I think you could see an interactive experience on that, and it's going to be more than just DLC characters that are going to be popped in after the fact. I have a feeling some of them will be getting their own games, starting with The Mandalorian. I think you can go ahead and create a narrative space game on that. I think you could do a great job, especially all the worlds that they go into that they've already delved in the first 2 seasons. I think you can do that. But again, the possibilities there for Star Wars are now seemingly more. And that's a good thing because the ideas could become reality. And if the ideas become reality, that could mean a lot more great Star Wars games each and every year for us, from different individuals outside of just going and saying EA, Electronic Arts. You're just living and dying off of what Electronic Arts are going to do. Now you can look at an Ubisoft. Now you can look at a Bethesda. Now you can look at possibly maybe an Activision down the road coming up with something in the universe of Star Wars, or someone else, maybe Microsoft doing a Xbox exclusive Star Wars game in there, or maybe PlayStation doing something like that. So the possibilities now are becoming stronger and stronger by Lucasfilm Games getting everything under its one umbrella and going ahead and saying, you know what, we're going to take these games under our belt and go ahead and create our own universe and not just have it part of everybody else's.
I'm hesitant. That's all I'm going to leave it with. I'm hesitant to see what happens.
What are your thoughts out there on Lucasfilm Games reforming to go ahead and saying, you know what, all future video games with the Star Wars moniker and also Indiana Jones will now be created and promoted by Lucasfilm Games? What are your thoughts on Lucasfilm Games doing everything under their own banner? Share us your thoughts. PopCultureCosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode, but before we head on out, 52 weeks of Netflix films? That's the case, as Netflix has announced or setting a goal of a new movie every week for its platform. So I want to hear your thoughts on that. And we're not just talking about just some cheesy movies every now and then. We're talking about popular movies, action movies, romantic movies, rom-coms. They've talked about all these different type of movies that are going to be hitting at least one per week throughout the rest of this year.
This is insane because all I can think is, how are you going to deliver that quality of content over the year? You know, I'm trying to pull up the list of Netflix original films here to see our release dates here. I mean, we've got things scheduled out to April 30th right now. And then after that, everything's just announced as like mid-2021, late 2021. So I'd love to see kind of the release schedule, especially as we move through this first quarter here and see what they really start pushing. They've got a great history. I mean, look at what happened with The Midnight Sky. I mean, just killing it right now.
And Cobra Kai.
But even just staying under the movie umbrella for Netflix, I mean,
Yes.
They've had some great originals in the past year, and not even just the past year, the past 5 years. So I'm really excited to see what comes of this. My wife and I were just talking the other day about how, you know, they've really upped the standard when it comes to quality content, right? We've pushed the bounds, and Netflix started with its humble beginnings of shipping out DVDs and doing whatever it did to keep afloat for all those years until the streaming really came about and really became the driving factor for them, right? And with that, they started gaining that money to bought all the IP they could, and they've started producing their own IP, and it's really upped the game for everybody else around them. You know, I think Amazon Prime, the Amazon Prime originals, and the quality that's there, a lot of that has to do with the competition that they've had with Netflix and the higher standard that they need to deliver if they want to even compete.
Absolutely. So we'll definitely see how the streaming wars continue. But Netflix, after taking some shots from Peacock, from Disney Plus, from Apple Plus, and of course HBO Max, are now sending one over their bow with the announcement of a high-profile movie each and every week coming to their platform. So Netflix viewers can expect a high-profile movie. A good movie, bad movie, I don't know. It's just going to be a big-name movie coming each and every week to their platform.
We didn't talk Bridgerton. We kind of said that we were going to discuss that after we
Yeah.
binged it this
What were your
weekend.
thoughts on Bridgerton, man?
You know, I could only get through 2 episodes. It's so rough. I understand it's marketed at a generation that's a little bit younger than me, and I wasn't on board with it. And here's the messed up part. You know, I'm a completionist, so I'm going to finish the season so we can still talk about it, but it's not really scratching any fancy here. It's just meh. I just
50 Shades of Grey, I mean, is popular to a certain audience, and then it's reviled by a lot of others. So
Right.
it's considered one of the worst movies each and every year it comes out, but then again, it makes tons of money at the box office. So
Yeah, I think that's what Bridgerton's doing here. They're sliding into that gap, and they know they've got a niche that they're filling here, and it's yeah.
Indeed. Well, I'll tell you what, it's been a great episode. I cannot thank you enough for being part of it as always, and truly thankful that you're going to be here next week, right here on the PCC Multiverse. So for Marcus de la Garza, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great